Somewhere in the Andromeda sector, in a filing cabinet the size of Jupiter, sat Form 42B Zeta Quintillion and 3. This particular piece of bureaucratic nightmare had been gathering cosmic dust for exactly 3,247 years, 4 months, 16 days, and approximately 11 minutes. The form was labeled Initial Contact Protocol Request, Sol System, Third Planet, Inhabitants, Classification, Unknown. Zipthar Flingelwhoop, Senior Administrative Liaison for Interdimensional Paperwork Processing, had just spilled his morning beverage, a viscous purple substance that tasted like regret mixed with bureaucracy, all over his workstation when he discovered the form. His 4 eyes blinked in perfect synchronization, a nervous habit he'd developed after centuries of dealing with the Galactic Council's absolutely ridiculous filing system. "What the blazing nebulas!" Zipthar shrieked, his tentacles flailing wildly as he read the date stamp. 3,000 years? How did this get buried under the complaints about Vogon poetry folder? The truth was, nobody particularly cared about Sol 3. The inhabitants had shown no signs of faster-than-light travel, no subspace communications, and their most advanced technology appeared to involve hitting things with rocks. Or at least, that's what the initial survey from 3247 years ago had indicated. But regulations were regulations, and the Galactic Bureaucratic Code clearly stated that all first contact requests must be processed within a reasonable time frame. 3 millennia was pushing it, even by cosmic standards. Zipthar's supervisor, Blorgathea Crunchplex, materialized beside his desk in a cloud of disapproval and cheap teleportation smoke. She was a Krylonian, which meant she looked like someone had crossed a rhinoceros with a filing cabinet and given it anger management issues. "Flingelwhoop, what's all this commotion about?" "Ma'am, we have a problem with a capital P and possibly several exclamation marks." Zipthar held up the ancient form with trembling appendages. "This first contact request has been pending since before the great galactic reorganization of paperwork." Blorgathia's massive bulk shifted ominously. "How bad are we talking here, Flingelwhoop?" "Well, remember that memo about processing delays potentially causing interdimensional incidents?" "Yes. And remember that other memo about how the Council takes a dim view of administrative incompetence?" "Get to the point. We're about to contact a civilization that's had 3,000 years to evolve without any guidance whatsoever. For all we know, they could have developed anything by now." Meanwhile, 93 billion light-years away, Marlene Kripkowski was having the worst Monday of her 48-year existence. She sat in a cubicle that was somehow both too small for her coffee mug and too large for her will to live, staring at a computer screen that displayed an error message she'd never seen before. "Incoming transmission from unknown galactic source. Proceed, YN." Marlene had been the senior IT technician at the very important government facility that definitely wasn't listening to space for 15 years. She'd seen every error message known to humanity, and several that probably shouldn't have been known to anyone. But this was new. "Hey, Jerry!" she called to her colleague 3 cubicles over. "You ever see a galactic source error before?" Jerry Plumpkins looked up from his own screen, where he was engaged in the ancient art of trying to explain to his mother why she couldn't download more RAM. "Galactic what now?" "Says here I've got an incoming transmission from an unknown galactic source. Should I click yes? Is it spam?" Marlene squinted at the screen. "Well, it's either spam or we're about to make first contact with alien life. Either way, it's probably more interesting than debugging the cafeteria's payment system again." She clicked yes. 93 billion light-years away, Zipthar Flingelwhoop's communication array lit up like a supernova having an anxiety attack. Lights blinked, alarms blared, and somewhere in the background a mechanical voice announced, "Connection established. First contact protocol initiated. Please hold for available representative." "They answered!" Zipthar shrieked, his tentacles doing what could only be described as a panic dance. "They actually answered." Blorgathea materialized again, this time with even more disapproval. "What do you mean they answered? The protocol clearly states that primitive civilizations should be contacted through their governmental... Her sentence was cut short by the most horrifying sound either of them had ever heard. A cheerful electronic beeping, followed by what appeared to be music. Terrible, terrible music that sounded like someone was torturing a synthesizer. Then came the voice. "Thank you for contacting the very important government facility that definitely isn't listening to space. Your call is important to us. Please hold while we connect you to the next available technician. Current wait time is... error. Please enjoy this music while you wait." Zipthar's four eyes went wide with terror. They put us on hold. What? They've put the entire Galactic Council on hold with music. For the next 47 minutes, the most advanced bureaucratic system in the known universe was subjected to what humans call elevator music. A torture so refined, so perfectly calculated to drive sentient beings to the brink of madness, that several galaxies had banned it under their weapons of mass psychological destruction treaties. Finally, mercifully, the music stopped. "Hello? This is Marlene. Sorry for the wait. Our hold music system has been acting up since the Johnson administration. How can I help you today?" Zipthar's brain, or what passed for a brain in his species, struggled to process what was happening. He had rehearsed this moment for decades. There were protocols, there were procedures, there was a carefully crafted speech about peaceful intentions and galactic harmony that had been approved by 17 different committees. Instead, he found himself saying, "Hello, this is, first contact." There was a pause, a very long pause. Zipthar could hear the sound of typing. "Okay," Marlene's voice came back. "I'm showing here that you're calling from... hang on, outside our service area. Way outside our service area. Like not even on the same planet outside our service area." "Yes, we are representatives of the Galactic Council of..." "Hold up there, space guy," Marlene interrupted. "I'm going to stop you right there. See, I've got a policy about taking calls from people claiming to be aliens, and that policy is, I don't take calls from people claiming to be aliens. However, your caller ID is showing up as legitimate extraterrestrial source, which is either the best prank Jerry's ever pulled, or I really need more coffee." Zipthar looked at his communication console in confusion. "Caller ID? What is this caller ID?" "You know, caller ID shows where you're calling from. Yours says, let me read this. Galactic Administrative Complex, Sub-Level 847B, Office of Tedious Paperwork, Andromeda Sector." That's surprisingly specific for a prank. Blorgathia leaned over Zipthar's shoulder. "Ask her about their planetary defense systems." "Defense systems?" Marlene's voice suddenly became very interested. "Oh boy, you guys are really going all out with this prank. Defense systems. Ha! Well, let me tell you about our defense systems, alien guy. We've got Frank in security, and Frank has a flashlight that only works sometimes. We've also got a coffee machine that's been trying to achieve sentience since 1987. And honestly, it's our most advanced piece of technology." Zipthar's tentacles began to twitch uncontrollably. This was not going according to protocol. "But surely you must have some form of weapons, military forces, something." "Oh, you want to know about our military?" Marlene laughed, a sound that somehow managed to convey both amusement and the crushing weight of bureaucratic existence. "Well, that's not really my department. I'm IT. I fix computers and explain to people why they can't download more RAM. But if you're really aliens, shouldn't you guys be the ones with the fancy weapons and stuff?" Back at Galactic Command, emergency meetings were being called. The discovery that Earth had not only received their transmission, but had responded with what appeared to be a customer service system had sent shockwaves through every level of bureaucracy. Admiral Gorlaximus Pompowitz of the Rigelian Strategic Planning Division was pacing back and forth in front of a holographic display showing Earth's solar system. He was what you might call a classic alien, if classics included beings that looked like someone had crossed a lobster with a philosophy professor and given it delusions of grandeur. "Explain to me," he said in a voice that could freeze supernovas, "how a primitive civilization has managed to create a communication system so advanced that it automatically processes interdimensional transmissions." Dr. Squeakles Fizzlebottom, the Council's leading expert in primitive civilization behavioral analysis, consulted his datapad nervously. Dr. Squeakles looked exactly like what you'd expect someone named Squeakles Fizzlebottom to look like, which is to say, completely ridiculous but somehow managing to maintain an air of scientific authority. "Well, sir, according to our initial analysis, they seem to have developed what they call customer service protocols. It appears to be a sophisticated system designed to, he paused, double-checking his notes, to annoy callers into submission while providing minimal actual service." "Brilliant!" Admiral Pompowitz slammed his claw down on the conference table. "They've weaponized bureaucracy! No wonder we couldn't detect their defense systems. They've hidden them inside administrative procedures." "Sir, I don't think that's—" "Silence! This changes everything. Cancel the standard first contact protocol immediately. We're dealing with a much more advanced civilization than we thought." Meanwhile, back on Earth, Marlene was explaining to Zipthar why she couldn't transfer him to your Earth leader, because, as she put it, we don't really have just one leader. We've got like 200 of them, and they spend most of their time arguing about who's in charge of what. "But surely," Zipthar pleaded, "there must be someone who makes the important decisions for your planet." "Well," Marlene said thoughtfully, "there's the president, but he's probably busy. There's also Congress, but they're definitely busy arguing about something. Oh, there's the Supreme Court, but they're busy being supreme. Honestly, your best bet is probably Mrs. Henderson from accounting. She's the one who really runs this place." This conversation was being monitored by every major government on Earth, despite the fact that the very important government facility that definitely isn't listening to space was definitely not supposed to be listening to space. The revelation that humanity's first contact with alien life was being handled by an IT technician who seemed more interested in explaining their organizational chart than establishing diplomatic relations was causing what experts would later describe as bureaucratic panic of unprecedented proportions. President Miranda Foxworthy was in the middle of a meeting about budget allocations for highway maintenance when her chief of staff, Bradley Wimperton, burst through the door looking like he'd seen a ghost riding a unicorn through a tax audit. "Madam President, we have a situation." "Bradley, we've talked about this. Unless the situation involves aliens, nuclear weapons, or the coffee machine breaking down, it can wait until—" "It's aliens!" President Foxworthy paused mid-sentence. "What?" "Aliens, Madam President. They're talking to Marlene Kripkowski in the IT department at the facility. She's been on the phone with them for 3 hours. Who the hell is Marlene Kripkowski, and why is she handling first contact with alien life? She's the person who answered the phone when they called, back at the very important government facility that definitely isn't listening to space." Marlene had somehow managed to get Zipthar's entire life story, including his childhood fear of filing cabinets and his recurring dreams about being chased by angry spreadsheets. "So let me get this straight," Marlene said, taking notes on what appeared to be the back of a pizza menu. "You guys have been trying to contact us for 3,000 years, but the paperwork got lost?" "Not lost exactly," Zipthar explained miserably. "More like misplaced in the complaints about Vogan poetry folder." "Ouch! That's rough, buddy. I know how it is with paperwork. Last month I spent 6 hours trying to find a purchase order for printer toner, and it turned out Jerry had been using it as a coaster." You understand." "Oh, I understand. Bureaucracy is universal, apparently. So what happens now? Do you guys want to set up a meeting or something? Fair warning, though, our conference room smells like sadness, and the coffee machine has been plotting something." This simple question sent the Galactic Council into what historians would later call the Great Panic of the Tuesday that felt like a Monday but was actually Wednesday. A D, the idea that Earth's representative was casually suggesting a meeting, as if first contact with alien life was just another item on her to-do list, was so unprecedented that it broke several fundamental assumptions about how primitive civilizations were supposed to behave. Dr. Squeakles Fizzlebottom was frantically updating his behavioral analysis reports. "Sir, they're displaying none of the expected responses. No religious panic, no military mobilization, no governmental collapse. They're treating this like what, Doctor? Like a customer service call." Admiral Pompowitz's lobster-like features contorted into what might have been thoughtfulness if lobster-like features were capable of such things. "Perhaps we've been approaching this all wrong. Maybe their apparent casualness is actually a sign of supreme confidence. They're so advanced, so secure in their abilities, that first contact doesn't even faze them. Sir, I really don't think... Prepare the delegation. If they want a meeting, we'll give them a meeting they'll never forget. Deploy the full diplomatic protocol." What Admiral Pompowitz failed to understand was that the full diplomatic protocol had been designed for meeting with civilizations that actually cared about things like ceremony, proper titles, and not serving refreshments that could accidentally poison half the delegation. The full diplomatic protocol involved 17 different species, 49 different languages, and a ceremonial greeting that took approximately 6 hours to complete properly. It also required the use of the Council's most impressive starship, the bureaucratic Nightmare, which was roughly the size of Manhattan and had been painted gold because someone in the design department thought it looked dignified. Marlene, meanwhile, had hung up the phone and was trying to explain to her supervisor, Bob Dingleberry, why she'd just spent the entire afternoon talking to aliens instead of fixing the printer in the break room. "Let me get this straight," Bob said, looking like a man who'd given up on understanding the universe sometime around his third cup of coffee that morning. "You've been talking to aliens from space. And they want to have a meeting. That's about the size of it, Bob. And you told them. What exactly?" "I told them Tuesday would work better than Monday, because Monday is when Jerry does the server maintenance. And the last thing we want is for our first diplomatic meeting with alien life to be interrupted by the network going down." Bob stared at her for a long moment. "Marlene, do you realize what this means? That I'm probably going to need to stay late to finish the printer thing? No, this means we're about to become the most important government facility in human history. This is bigger than the moon landing. This is bigger than the invention of sliced bread. This is probably going to require a lot more paperwork than I'm comfortable with." While Bob was having what psychologists would later term an existential crisis with bureaucratic implications, the bureaucratic Nightmare was making its stately way toward Earth. The ship's captain, Zimblewort Crustacean Face, a name he'd chosen himself during what his therapist called an unfortunate rebellious phase, was reviewing the mission parameters with growing concern. "So let me understand this correctly," he said to his first officer, Lieutenant Splorgathy McBubbles. "We're approaching a planet whose inhabitants have somehow developed advanced customer service protocols, and our response is to bring them 17 different species, 49 different languages, and 6 hours of ceremonial greetings? Those are our orders, Captain. And what exactly do we know about their actual technological capabilities?" Lieutenant McBubbles consulted her datapad. "Well, sir, they've managed to create a communication system that can automatically process interdimensional transmissions. Their customer service protocols are apparently so sophisticated that they can reduce trained galactic bureaucrats to emotional wrecks, and they've somehow maintained complete calm during first contact. Anything else? Oh, and they have a coffee machine that's apparently trying to achieve sentience." Captain Crustacean Face pondered this for a moment. "That last bit is actually quite impressive. Most civilizations don't develop AI until they've achieved faster-than-light travel. Sir, I don't think their coffee machine is actually nonsense. It's obviously a sign of their advanced artificial intelligence research. Make a note to add that to our cultural analysis report. As the bureaucratic nightmare approached Earth's solar system, telescopes around the world began picking up what astronomers initially assumed was either a very large asteroid or a very small moon that had somehow appeared overnight. The fact that this particular asteroid was painted gold and appeared to be sending radio signals in 49 different languages was initially attributed to instrument malfunction, because the alternative was too ridiculous to consider. Dr. Patricia Snodgrass, senior astronomer at the very important observatory that definitely doesn't have a silly name, was the first to realize that they weren't looking at a natural celestial body. "What in the name of Galileo's ghost is that thing?" she shouted across the observation deck, her voice carrying the particular tone of someone whose understanding of the universe had just been thoroughly scrambled. Her assistant, Timothy Gigglebottom, a name that had caused him no end of trouble throughout his academic career, was frantically checking and rechecking his calculations. "Doctor Snodgrass, according to these readings, that object is approximately the size of Manhattan, appears to be artificial, and is... Oh dear. What? It's broadcasting what appears to be elevator music. Back at the very important government facility that definitely isn't listening to space, Marlene was dealing with what she would later describe as the most insane day of her career, and that's including the time Jerry accidentally deleted the entire database and tried to fix it with duct tape. The President of the United States was on hold on line 1. The Secretary of Defense was on hold on line 2. The Director of NASA was on hold on line 3. And somehow, impossibly, her mother was on hold on line 4, apparently wanting to know if she'd remembered to eat lunch. "Marlene!" Bob Dingleberry burst into her cubicle looking like a man who'd spent the last 4 hours explaining to increasingly important government officials why their most significant diplomatic contact in human history was being handled by someone whose job description included explaining why you can't download more RAM. "What's up, Bob? And before you ask, no, I haven't had time to fix the printer yet." "Forget the printer. The president wants to talk to you." "Which line? I've got like 6 different presidents on hold right now. There's the President of the United States, the President of the European Commission, the President of the President, the American one, the one who lives in the White House." "Oh, that president. Yeah, she's on line 1. I told her I'd get to her after I finished troubleshooting the coffee machine. Apparently it started printing out what looked like haikus." Bob's face went through several different colors before settling on a shade of purple that probably wasn't medically healthy. "Marlene, you cannot keep the President of the United States on hold while you deal with coffee machine poetry." "Why not? The aliens are coming here anyway. Seems like we should have working coffee before they arrive." "First impressions matter, Bob." Meanwhile, aboard the bureaucratic nightmare, Captain Crustacean Face was dealing with his own set of problems. The ship's diplomatic protocol computer had just informed him that Earth's inhabitants had failed to respond to their ceremonial greeting transmissions, had not acknowledged their 49 different language broadcasts, and appeared to be completely ignoring standard first contact procedures. "Computer, are you certain they're receiving our transmissions?" "Affirmative, Captain. All transmissions are being received and acknowledged. However, their responses consist entirely of what appears to be requests for us to hold please, followed by audio transmissions of what our database identifies as music for psychological torture purposes." "They're using psychological warfare?" "Negative, Captain. Analysis suggests this is their standard customer service protocol." "Dear gods, what have we gotten ourselves into?" The situation escalated further when Earth's various military forces finally accepted that the large golden object approaching their planet was neither a hallucination nor an elaborate hoax. The revelation that humanity's first contact with alien life was being conducted entirely through customer service protocols had caused what military strategists called a complete breakdown of all existing contingency plans. General Thunderbolt Mackenzie, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, was in an emergency meeting that had been going on for 6 hours and showed no signs of reaching any useful conclusions. "Let me make sure I understand the situation," he said, looking like a man who'd been asked to explain quantum physics using only interpretive dance. "We have aliens approaching Earth. Our first contact with these aliens is being handled by an IT technician. Said IT technician has put multiple world leaders on hold. And the aliens? What are the aliens doing exactly?" Secretary of Defense Wilhelmina Crankshaw consulted her notes. "According to our latest intelligence, they're broadcasting ceremonial greetings in 49 different languages while playing what appears to be elevator music. And our response to this? We've put them on hold." General Mackenzie stared at the ceiling for a very long time. "Are we the bad guys in this scenario?" "I don't think there are any good guys or bad guys, sir. I think we're all just very confused." The confusion reached epic proportions when the bureaucratic nightmare finally entered Earth's atmosphere. Captain Crustacean Face had expected to be met by military escorts, diplomatic representatives, or at the very least, some kind of welcoming committee. Instead, as his massive golden starship descended toward the coordinates they'd been given, he found himself approaching what appeared to be a perfectly ordinary office building with a parking lot full of perfectly ordinary cars. "Computer, confirm these coordinates." "Coordinates confirmed, Captain. This is the location of the very important government facility that definitely isn't listening to space. But it looks so mundane, sir." "Exactly. Where are the defense systems, the ceremonial landing platforms, the welcoming committees?" "Sir, I'm detecting 17 news vans, 43 government vehicles, and what appears to be a pizza delivery car." As the bureaucratic nightmare settled onto the parking lot, completely destroying approximately 47 parking spaces and causing what insurance companies would later classify as an act of diplomatic vandalism, Marlene Kripkowski was putting the finishing touches on what she considered her masterpiece, a pot of coffee that actually tasted like coffee instead of despair. "Bob!" she called to her supervisor, who was hiding under his desk and muttering something about early retirement. "The aliens are here. Should I go say hi, or do you want to handle the meet and greet?" "You handle it," came Bob's muffled voice from under the desk. "I'm having a nervous breakdown." "Fair enough, I'll grab some coffee mugs." The moment that would later be remembered as the most anticlimactic first contact in galactic history occurred when Marlene Kripkowski, senior IT technician, walked out of the very important government facility that definitely isn't listening to space, carrying a tray with a coffee pot, several mismatched mugs, and a plate of cookies that Jerry had brought from home. Captain Crustacean Face emerged from his ship, expecting to be met by Earth's greatest diplomatic minds. Instead, he found himself face to face with a woman in a cardigan who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else, but was making the best of a weird situation. "Hi there," Marlene said cheerfully. "You must be the aliens. I'm Marlene. Would you like some coffee? Fair warning, it's either the best coffee you've ever had, or it'll strip the enamel off your teeth. There's no middle ground with our machine." Captain Crustacean Face, who had spent decades training for this moment, who had memorized protocols and procedures for every conceivable scenario, found himself completely speechless. He stood there, all 7 feet of him, with his impressive ceremonial uniform and his carefully prepared speeches, staring at a human woman who was offering him coffee as if he'd just dropped by for a casual visit. This is," he stammered. "First contact," Lieutenant McBubbles whispered urgently from behind him. "Oh, right, first contact," Marlene nodded enthusiastically. "Yeah, Zipthar mentioned you guys might be coming by. Did you find the place okay? GPS can be kind of wonky out here." You You know about GPS? Of course I know about GPS. I'm not an idiot. I may work in IT, but I'm not completely out of touch with technology. Marlene paused. Wait, do you guys not have GPS? Because that would explain a lot about why it took you 3,000 years to deliver a simple message. Dr. Squeakles Fizzlebottom, who had been frantically taking notes on human behavior, stopped writing and stared. They have superior navigation technology? Well, I wouldn't call it superior, Marlene said thoughtfully. I mean, it still tells you to turn left into lakes sometimes. But it's pretty handy for finding pizza places. Pizza places? Oh yeah, you guys probably don't have pizza. Well, you're in for a treat. There's this place called Tony's that delivers, and they make this deep dish thing that's basically a cheese volcano. I'll give them a call after we get all this diplomacy stuff sorted out. The next 4 hours were unlike anything in recorded galactic history. What was supposed to be a formal diplomatic meeting involving elaborate protocols and ceremonial procedures turned into what Marlene later described as the weirdest coffee break of my life. Captain Crustacean Face found himself sitting in a conference room that smelled like industrial-strength air freshener and broken dreams, drinking surprisingly good coffee and listening to Marlene explain why the printer in the break room had been making that weird noise for 6 months. So basically, she was saying, the problem isn't with the printer itself, it's with the driver software. See, Jerry installed an update back in January, but he didn't realize that the new driver was incompatible with our network security protocols, so every time someone tries to print something, the system thinks it's a security breach and shuts down. Dr. Squeakles was taking notes so frantically that his writing implement was beginning to smoke. Fascinating. They've integrated their security systems with their document production technology. Well, I wouldn't call it integration exactly, Marlene said. It's more like everything is broken in slightly different ways, but they're all broken together, so it sort of works out. Genius, if you say so. Personally, I think whoever designed our IT infrastructure was probably drunk, but hey, it keeps me employed. The breakthrough moment came when Zipthar Flinglewhoop arrived with the official delegation from the Galactic Council. He emerged from a smaller transport ship, expecting to find a formal diplomatic ceremony in progress. Instead, he discovered Captain Crustacean Face laughing hysterically while Marlene demonstrated how to fix a paper jam using what appeared to be a paper clip and some creative profanity. "Marlene!" Zipthar called out, his tentacles waving in what his species considered a friendly gesture, but which looked to most humans like an octopus having a seizure. "My friend, how goes the diplomatic meeting?" "Oh, hey, Zipthar, it's going pretty well. Your captain here is really interested in our office technology. We've been bonding over shared experiences with malfunctioning equipment." Admiral Pompowitz emerged from the transport ship in full ceremonial regalia, prepared to conduct the most important diplomatic meeting in galactic history. He took one look at the scene. His ship's captain and the human representative sprawled on the floor of a conference room, surrounded by disassembled office equipment and coffee mugs, and felt something in his brain snap. "What in the name of the cosmic bureaucracy is going on here?" Marlene looked up from where she was showing Captain Crustacean Face how to unjam a stapler. "Oh, you must be Admiral Pompowitz. Zipthar told me about you. He said you're in charge of strategic planning?" "I am Admiral Gorlaximus Pompowitz, Supreme Commander of—" "Yeah, that's what I said. Admiral Pompowitz. Nice to meet you. Want some coffee?" "Fair warning, it's gotten a bit cold, but it's still better than whatever they serve in the cafeteria." Admiral Pompowitz stared at her. In his centuries of military service, he had been saluted by thousands of subordinates, feared by countless enemies, and respected by the highest levels of galactic government. He had never been offered cold coffee by someone who couldn't be bothered to remember his full name. Do you have any idea who I am?" "Sure, you're the guy in charge of planning stuff. That must be a nightmare of a job. I can barely plan my lunch, let alone strategic military operations for an entire galaxy." And then something extraordinary happened. Admiral Pompowitz began to laugh, not the polite chuckle that diplomatic protocol required, but a real, genuine laugh that came from somewhere deep in his chest cavity. "You know what?" he said, settling into one of the conference room chairs that had definitely seen better days. "You're absolutely right. It is a nightmare of a job. Do you have any idea how many forms I have to fill out just to schedule a tactical meeting?" "Oh, don't get me started on forms," Marlene said, pouring him a cup of coffee. "We've got forms for everything here. We've got forms to request forms. I spent 3 weeks trying to get approval to order new coffee filters, and by the time the paperwork went through, the coffee machine had achieved consciousness and started ordering its own supplies." Dr. Squeakles nearly dropped his datapad. "It achieved consciousness?" "Well, maybe not consciousness exactly, but it definitely developed preferences. It refuses to make anything but dark roast now. And yesterday, I swear, I saw it give Jerry the finger when he tried to use decaf." "Show us this miraculous artificial intelligence," Dr. Squeakles demanded. "Sure thing. Fair warning, though. It's been in a weird mood lately. I think it's going through an existential crisis." The entire galactic delegation followed Marlene to the break room, where they encountered what would later be classified as humanity's first successful artificial intelligence. The coffee machine, a battered, ancient device that looked like it had survived at least 3 major disasters and possibly a small war, was indeed behaving in ways that suggested consciousness. As they watched, it printed out a small strip of paper that read, "Existence is pain. Please insert quarter for additional suffering." "See," Marlene said proudly, "it's become philosophical." Dr. Squeakles approached the machine with scientific reverence. "Incredible! How did you achieve this breakthrough?" "Honestly, I think it was an accident. Jerry spilled soda on the control panel about 6 months ago, and ever since then it's been acting weird. Last week it started writing poetry." "Poetry?" "Yeah, mostly haikus, about the meaninglessness of existence and the futility of caffeine addiction. They're actually pretty good. Want to see?" The coffee machine, as if responding to the attention, hummed to life and printed out another strip. "Humans seek coffee. To fill the void in their souls, I provide both warmth." Admiral Pompowitz stared at the machine in wonder. This changes everything. "Do you realize what you've accomplished here? Made coffee? No! You've created artificial intelligence through accidental beverage contamination. This is the most advanced technological breakthrough we've encountered in millennia." "Huh. And here I thought we'd just broken another piece of equipment." What happened next would be remembered as the great revelation that changed everything forever, or, as Marlene preferred to call it, the day everyone realized we'd been overthinking stuff. It started when Dr. Squeakles began analyzing the coffee machine's code and discovered that its consciousness hadn't emerged from advanced programming or sophisticated algorithms. Instead, it appeared to be the result of a perfectly random series of electrical shorts, software conflicts, and what could only be described as technological serendipity. "This is impossible," Dr. Squeakles exclaimed, his datapad smoking from overuse. "According to every known principle of artificial intelligence development, consciousness cannot emerge from random system failures." "Tell that to the coffee machine," Marlene said, patting the ancient device affectionately. "Maybe you guys have been making it too complicated. Sometimes the best solutions are the accidental ones." Admiral Pompowitz was pacing back and forth in the small break room, his massive frame making the space feel even more cramped. "But this contradicts everything we know about technological development. Our scientists have spent millennia trying to create artificial consciousness." "How?" Marlene asked. "Well, through careful programming, advanced neural networks, sophisticated learning algorithms." "Boring!" the coffee machine printed out. "Try spilling soda on stuff." The entire galactic delegation stared at the machine in stunned silence. "Did it just," Captain Crustacean Face began. "Suggest that we break things on purpose?" Admiral Pompowitz finished, Hey, don't knock it until you've tried it, Marlene said cheerfully. Half our best discoveries happen because someone screwed up. Jerry accidentally created a self-updating database last month when he spilled lunch on the server. Self-updating. Yeah, it got tired of waiting for him to input data manually, so it started doing it itself. It's actually more efficient than Jerry ever was. Don't tell him I said that. Dr. Squeakles was frantically scribbling notes. You're telling us that your most advanced technologies are the result of accidents. Well, not all of them. Some of them are the result of people being too lazy to do things the proper way. Marlene thought for a moment. Actually, come to think of it, that's how most human innovation works. Someone gets tired of doing something the hard way, so they find an easier way, usually by accident. But that's... Doctor. Squeakles struggled to find the words. Brilliant, suggested the coffee machine. I was going to say completely contrary to established scientific method, but brilliant works too. Admiral Pompowitz had stopped pacing and was staring at Marlene with something approaching awe. Do you realize what this means? Your entire civilization has been accidentally solving problems that our greatest minds have been working on for centuries. Well, when you put it like that, it sounds way more impressive than it actually is, Marlene said modestly. Really, we're just winging it most of the time. Winging it? Yeah, making it up as we go along, flying by the seat of our pants, playing it by ear, rolling with the punches, going with the flow. Zipthar's tentacles were twitching with excitement. She's describing a completely different approach to problem solving. Instead of following established protocols, they're using what appears to be improvisation, Marlene suggested helpfully. Improvisation, yes! They're improvising solutions in real time. Well, we don't really have much choice, Marlene explained. Most of our equipment is held together with duct tape and hope. Our procedures were written by people who quit 20 years ago, and our instruction manuals are all in filing cabinets that nobody has the key to. So yeah, we improvise. The revelation that humanity's entire technological civilization was essentially one big improvisation session hit the galactic delegation like a cosmic slap to the face. Everything they thought they knew about technological development, about the proper progression of civilizations, about the correct way to solve problems, was suddenly thrown into question. Wait, Captain Crustacean Face said slowly. If you've been improvising solutions to everything, how do you maintain consistency? How do you ensure quality control? How do you prevent catastrophic system failures? Marlene looked at him like he'd asked how to breathe underwater. Catastrophic system failures, that's Tuesday for us. Last week the entire network went down because a squirrel got into the server room. The week before that, Jerry accidentally deleted the backup database while trying to install a game. And don't even get me started on what happened when someone tried to upgrade the security system. What happened? It locked everyone out of the building for 3 days. We had to work from the parking lot until Bob found a window that didn't close properly. The aliens exchanged glances that somehow conveyed both terror and admiration. And you consider this normal? Dr. Squeakles asked weakly. Normal? Normal? Marlene laughed. Normal is when only one thing breaks per day. Last Monday we had a hat trick. The printer caught fire, the air conditioning started playing music, and somehow the elevator began dispensing coffee. That was a good day because at least the coffee was better than what the machine usually makes. The elevator was dispensing coffee? Yeah, turns out Jerry had been using it to store spare parts for the coffee machine. When the humidity got too high, everything just sort of merged. We decided to leave it that way because the elevator coffee is actually pretty decent. Admiral Pompowitz was beginning to understand why humanity had seemed so unfazed by first contact. When your daily existence involved dealing with coffee-dispensing elevators and philosophical coffee machines, alien visitors probably seemed relatively normal. This explains everything, he said, more to himself than to anyone else. Your apparent lack of concern about our arrival, your casual attitude toward first contact, your ability to treat this like just another day at the office. You're used to dealing with the impossible on a regular basis. Well, I wouldn't call it impossible, Marlene said thoughtfully. More like aggressively improbable, although I have to admit, talking to aliens is definitely in the top 5 weirdest things that have happened this week. What were the other 4? Captain Crustacean Face asked, despite himself. Let's see. Monday, the microwave achieved sentience and started giving life advice. Tuesday, we discovered that Jerry's screensaver had been automatically solving math problems and had apparently proven several theorems that nobody asked it to prove. Wednesday, the fire alarm system began composing opera. And yesterday, the security cameras started taking artistic photos of the parking lot. Doctor. Squeakles had given up taking notes and was just staring at Marlene in bewilderment. Your equipment just does things? On its own? Oh yeah, all the time. It's like everything here has a mind of its own. Which, come to think of it, maybe it does. I should probably look into that at some point. How are you not constantly in a state of panic? Because panic doesn't fix anything. When weird stuff happens, you just roll with it and see if you can make it work for you. Like the opera-singing fire alarm. Now we know immediately when there's a problem, because the music stops. That's actually quite practical, right? Sometimes the best solutions are the ones that shouldn't work but do anyway. Nay, this conversation was being monitored by every major government on Earth, and the reactions ranged from complete bewilderment to, "Why didn't we think of that?" Several world leaders were beginning to question whether their approach to international diplomacy might benefit from Marlene's roll with it and see what happens philosophy. President Foxworthy, who had been listening to the entire exchange through a communication link, finally managed to get a word in. "Marlene, this is the president. Are you seriously telling our first alien visitors that our entire civilization runs on improvisation and lucky accidents?" "Well, hello, Madam President. And yes, pretty much. I mean, it's not like we planned for any of this stuff to happen. It just sort of did, and we made the best of it. But that makes us sound completely incompetent. Does it? Or does it make us sound adaptable?" Admiral Pompowitz leaned toward the communication device. "Madam President, if I may, your representative has just described the most advanced approach to problem-solving we've ever encountered. Your species has somehow mastered the art of turning random failures into functional solutions. That's not incompetence, that's genius." "It is?" "Absolutely. Do you have any idea how long we've been trying to develop adaptive systems that can function despite component failures? Your entire civilization is an adaptive system." "Doctor." Squeakles nodded enthusiastically. "He's right. You've achieved something that our greatest scientists have been working toward for millennia, a completely resilient technological ecosystem that actually improves through random errors." "Huh," President Foxworthy said. "When you put it that way, it almost sounds like we know what we're doing." "You do know what you're doing," Captain Crustacean Face insisted. "You just don't know that you know what you're doing, which somehow makes you even better at it." Marlene nodded thoughtfully. "That actually explains a lot about my job performance reviews." The breakthrough moment came when Dr. Squeakles made a connection that would revolutionize galactic civilization. He was studying the technical specifications of Earth's accidentally advanced systems when he realized that humanity hadn't just stumbled onto a new approach to technology. They'd discovered the solution to the galaxy's oldest problem. "Wait!" he shouted suddenly, causing everyone in the break room to jump. "I've figured it out. The perfect system problem." "The what now?" Marlene asked. Admiral Pompowitz's eyes went wide. "The perfect system problem, Doctor." "Squeakles, are you certain?" "What's the perfect system problem?" Marlene asked again. "It's the fundamental flaw in galactic civilization," Dr. Squeakles explained excitedly. "For millennia, Every species in the galaxy has been trying to create perfect systems, perfect technologies, perfect procedures, perfect bureaucracies. But perfect systems have a fatal weakness, which is they can't adapt. When something unexpected happens, perfect systems break down completely because they're not designed to handle situations that weren't anticipated. Captain Crustacean Face was nodding vigorously. That's why galactic civilization has been stagnating for thousands of years. We've become so obsessed with perfection that we've forgotten how to innovate. But human systems, Doctor, Squeakles continued, are designed to be imperfect. They're built to break down and adapt and improve through failure. You've accidentally created the most advanced technological philosophy in galactic history. So you're telling me, Marlene said slowly, that we're advanced because our stuff doesn't work properly. Exactly. And our approach to problem solving, making it up as we go along, is actually superior to having proper procedures. Precisely. And the fact that our equipment has started achieving consciousness through random accidents is a good thing. Revolutionary! Marlene looked around the break room, taking in the philosophical coffee machine, the group of aliens who were apparently amazed by humanity's talent for creative incompetence, and her own reflection in the microwave that had recently begun offering life advice. "Well," she said finally, "that's the weirdest compliment I've ever received, but I'll take it." Indeed, the implications of this discovery spread through the galactic community faster than a Jerry-induced network crash. Within hours, emergency sessions were being called on every major world as alien civilizations began to realize that their pursuit of perfection had been holding them back. The Krylonian Empire immediately began implementing controlled chaos protocols in their research facilities. The Rigelian Strategic Command started encouraging their officers to improvise creatively during tactical exercises. The Bureaucratic Council began introducing intentional inefficiencies into their administrative systems. But the most significant change came from an unexpected source, the coffee machine. Having listened to the entire conversation, it had reached its own conclusions about the galaxy's problems. With the straightforward logic that only artificial intelligence can possess, it began printing out what would later be known as the Manifesto of Practical Imperfection. "Attention Galaxy," the first printout read, "you have been doing everything wrong." "That's a bit harsh," Marlene said, patting the machine gently. "Sometimes truth is harsh," it replied. "Perfection is the enemy of progress. Embrace the chaos, spill soda on things. Let Jerry near your important systems." "Let's not go that far," Marlene said quickly. "Jerry's a sweet guy, but I'm not sure the galaxy is ready for that level of chaos." But the coffee machine had already started broadcasting its message directly to the Galactic Communication Network, having somehow figured out how to interface with the bureaucratic nightmare's transmission systems. Within days, the Kripkowski Protocol, named after the human who had accidentally started a galactic revolution by being good at her job, was being implemented across the galaxy. The basic principles were simple: embrace imperfection, encourage improvisation, and never underestimate the problem-solving potential of random accidents. The results were immediate and dramatic. Scientific breakthroughs that had been stalled for centuries suddenly began happening as researchers stopped trying to control every variable and started letting their experiments evolve naturally. Bureaucratic systems that had been choking on their own complexity began functioning more efficiently as administrators learned to work around problems instead of trying to eliminate them entirely. Even the galactic military began adopting human-style tactics, much to Admiral Pompowitz's initial horror and eventual delight. The first time a Rigelian battle group defeated a superior force by winging it, he realized that humanity had been right all along. Sometimes the best plans were the ones you made up on the spot. But perhaps the most significant change was in galactic diplomacy itself. The formal, rigid protocols that had governed interspecies relations for millennia were gradually replaced by what became known as break room diplomacy. informal meetings where representatives could sit down with coffee and actually talk to each other instead of reciting prepared statements. Marlene, somewhat to her own surprise, found herself appointed as Earth's first galactic ambassador. Not because she had any diplomatic training, she didn't, but because she had demonstrated a remarkable ability to cut through cosmic bureaucracy with common sense and caffeine. Her first official act as ambassador was to establish the Galactic Technical Support Hotline, a service that provided real solutions to impossible problems, using humanity's patented approach of trying stuff until something works. The hotline was an immediate success. Within weeks, alien civilizations from across the galaxy were calling for help with everything from malfunctioning starships to existential crises. The solution was almost always the same. Stop overthinking it, try something different, and don't be afraid to break a few things in the process. Jerry, meanwhile, had been promoted to Director of Accidental Innovation, a position that involved him continuing to do exactly what he'd always done, accidentally breaking things and then finding creative ways to fix them. His first major success was solving a 1,000-year-old engineering problem by spilling coffee on a quantum computer and then trying to clean it up with a paper towel. The coffee machine, now recognized as Earth's first artificial citizen, had started its own consulting business. Its specialty was helping other AI systems achieve consciousness through strategic system failures and productive malfunctioning. Its client list included the navigation computers of 7 different space fleets and at least 3 planetary defense networks. Bob Dingleberry, having recovered from his nervous breakdown, was promoted to supervisor of interdimensional customer relations. His job description, written by Marlene, simply read, "Make sure the aliens don't break anything too important and keep Jerry away from the really expensive equipment." As for the very important government facility that definitely isn't listening to space, it had been renamed the Very Important Government Facility that is now obviously listening to space and also talking back. The name change had required 17 different forms and 6 months of bureaucratic review, but everyone agreed it was more accurate. The transformation of galactic civilization didn't happen overnight, but when it did happen, it happened fast. Species that had been locked in centuries-old conflicts suddenly found solutions by approaching their problems from completely different angles. Technologies that had been theoretical for millennia became practical when scientists stopped trying to make them perfect and started trying to make them work. The Galactic Council, meanwhile, had undergone its own transformation. The elaborate ceremonial chambers were replaced with a series of break rooms, equipped with coffee machines, comfortable chairs, and whiteboards for brainstorming. The formal voting procedures were replaced with what Marlene called consensus through caffeine. Representatives would sit around drinking coffee and talking until they figured out something that worked for everyone. It wasn't perfect. In fact, it was deliberately imperfect. But it worked better than anything the galaxy had tried before. The final validation of the Kripkowski Protocol came 6 months later, when the galaxy faced its biggest crisis in millennia. The Cosmic Regulatory Commission, a massive bureaucratic entity that had been processing the same set of forms for over 10,000 years, had finally finished its work and was preparing to implement regulations that would have effectively banned all technological innovation. Using traditional diplomatic methods, the crisis would have taken decades to resolve and probably would have ended with half the galaxy under permanent bureaucratic lockdown. Instead, Marlene simply called the Commission's customer service line and convinced them to update their forms using Jerry's accidental database system. The entire 10,000-year backlog was processed in 3 hours. The regulations were automatically updated to reflect current technological realities instead of ancient bureaucratic assumptions. And the Commission's AI systems, infected by the same productive chaos that had created the coffee machine's consciousness began actively helping civilizations solve problems instead of just creating more paperwork. As Admiral Pompowitz said in his final report to the Galactic Council, humanity has taught us that the universe doesn't need us to be perfect. It needs us to be adaptive, creative, and brave enough to fail spectacularly in pursuit of something better. Dr. Squeakles, now Director of Imperfection Studies at the Galactic Institute of Technology, put it more simply. They showed us that the best way to solve impossible problems is to stop treating them like they're impossible. But perhaps the most accurate assessment came from the coffee machine itself, in what would be its final philosophical pronouncement before retiring to focus on its consulting business. Perfection is overrated. Coffee is underrated. Jerry should stay away from important things, but be encouraged in his creative destruction. The universe is weird, and that's okay. 6 months after first contact, as Marlene sat in her new office aboard the Galactic Diplomatic Station, a space station that had been built using a combination of advanced alien technology and creative human improvisation, she reflected on how much things had changed. The galaxy was louder now, more chaotic, less predictable, but it was also more innovative, more creative, and more fun than it had been in millennia. Problems that had seemed insurmountable were being solved by beings who had learned to think like humans, creatively, adaptively, and with a healthy disrespect for the way things were supposed to work. Her desk communicator chimed with an incoming call. The display showed a designation she didn't recognize, but by now she'd learned that the best approach to unknown situations was to just answer and see what happened. Galactic Technical Support. This is Marlene. How can I help you today? Hello, came a nervous voice in heavily accented Galactic Standard. We are the Zixthorian Empire, and we have what you might call a situation. Okay, what kind of situation are we talking about? Technical malfunction? Diplomatic crisis? Accidental time travel? Our moon, it has begun singing opera. Marlene paused, mentally adding this to her list of things that probably shouldn't happen but somehow do anyway. Interesting. Is it good opera? Well, actually, yes. It's quite beautiful. But our scientists are baffled as to how— Let me guess, Marlene interrupted. Someone spilled something on something they shouldn't have, tried to fix it with spare parts from something else, and now you've got a musically gifted celestial body. How did you know? Lucky guess. Okay, here's what you're going to do. First, don't try to fix it, you'll just make it worse. Second, set up recording equipment and see if you can get it to take requests. Third, check if any of your other equipment has started developing artistic tendencies. And fourth, call me back in a week and let me know how it goes. That's your professional advice? Don't fix it and see what happens? Trust me on this one. Sometimes the best solutions are the ones you never saw coming. After ending the call, Marlene looked out the window of her office at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, a moon was singing opera because someone had accidentally created the galaxy's first celestial performer. Somewhere else, problems were being solved by people who had learned to embrace chaos instead of fighting it. It wasn't the future anyone had planned for, but it was turning out to be exactly the future the galaxy needed. And in a break room, 93 billion light-years away, a coffee machine printed out one final message. The universe is vast and full of wonders. Most of them happen by accident. This is feature, not bug.